Lastly, here's an example of when revenue, while it's still important for any for-profit business, is not the primary metric. When it comes to social products and platforms, the lens you need to look through is how viral can you go? Therefore, how many users are you seeing on a regular basis, and how frequently are you seeing them? Those are much more meaningful in this space. Supporting KPIs around here revolve around retention, app store ratings, understanding their user engagement, not the flashy ones, but true user engagement. I know I've thrown a lot of information at you, so stick with me for a few more minutes and I'll help you tie all of this up with a pretty little bow. Some of you may have heard or seen this quote before, and it's certainly something my employees hear me say often. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. We love Brené Brown. So whether you're presenting this information to your internal leadership team or externally to investors or partners, make sure what you're saying and how you're communicating it is clear. What do I mean by that? Well, let me be clear. Before we wrap, I'm going to share a few of these tips and strong suggestions just to ensure that your success in all of the communication that you guys are going to be doing. First, under the business and financial metrics, make sure you have an understanding about your bookings versus your revenue. They communicate different numbers and they are different things. Recurring revenue versus total revenue. Investors want to see more cash flow from your product, not one-off items like professional services. They want to see repeatability that starts to indicate scalability. So make sure to keep that in mind and have an awareness there. Burn rate. This is the rate at which cash is decreasing. Earlier stage companies are acutely aware of this metric as it's critical to the longevity of their business. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. TCV versus ACV. Expect to get questions around this. Basically, are your numbers growing? That's going to be the big one. NRR, know this calculation. So NRR stands for net revenue retention. I want to share a story quickly. I was once pitching an investor, and this person asked me, Brittani, what's your NDR? I paused for a moment and I said, I'm not familiar with that. What does NDR stand for? They scoffed at me and said, well, then we need to get back to the books then, sweetie, don't we? I paused. Again, I asked, well, do you mind telling me what NDR stands for? Another associate shouted out on the side of the room, net dollar retention, to which I smiled, and with direct eye contact to the original person speaking to me in the room, I stated, yes, our net revenue retention is 161%, which, if anyone's familiar, that's very decent. I shed light on this not to redirect into the negative piece of this, but I want to help you understand and be aware of there are several ways to communicate or ask the same exact question. One metric may have several different names, so don't be afraid to ask for further clarity and to also be confident in knowing your business and what you bring to the table. So moving on to productivity and engagement, we've discussed most of these, but what I do want to call it is the third bullet, downloads. This is what I was referencing when I said the vanity metric. When sharing externally, it may raise a flag that you need filler data. It may not always be the case. Maybe it does make sense for your business, but just remember your metrics need to be directly correlated with the type of engagement that's indicative of growth. So stick to the user activity and their behaviors. That's really going to be what moves the needle.